Liam Foster's champagne glass didn't just slip. It shattered. The sound was lost in the applause, but for him, it was a gunshot, signaling the end of his world. He was here at the most exclusive ball of the decade, ready to toast his new life, his new promotion, and his perfect new fiancée. He'd even spent the night mocking his pathetic ex-wife Chloe. Now he was frozen, his blood turning to ice. Because the woman standing in the spotlight, being introduced not just as a guest, but as the bride of the world's most enigmatic billionaire, was Chloe. The coffee tasted like ash. Chloe Bennett stirred the lukewarm liquid in its paper cup, her reflection staring back at her from the darkened window of the Pret-a-Manger on 6th Avenue. It was 7:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, and she was on her fourth coffee of the day, a cheap substitute for the dinner she'd skip. Rain lashed the pavement, turning the city's lights into a blurry, indifferent watercolor. She was tired. Not just tired from her 12-hour day at the gallery, but a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that had settled in 6 months ago, the day the divorce from Liam Foster was finalized. The bell on the cafe door jingled, and a blast of cold, wet air hit the back of her neck. Chloe flinched, pulling the collar of her worn but still elegant camel coat tighter. "Chloe, my God, is that you?" The voice was a sickening cocktail of feigned surprise and genuine pity. It was Liam. Chloe turned slowly. He wasn't alone. Standing under his ridiculously large corporate-branded J.P. Morgan Chase umbrella was Sophia Hayes. Sophia, the upgrade. Sophia with her pin-straight platinum hair, a face that had been expertly, if unnaturally sculpted by a Park Avenue surgeon, and a bright white Moncler jacket that seemed to repel the grimy city rain. Liam, by contrast, looked like he'd been ripped from a hedge fund advertisement. His suit was bespoke. His watch was an Audemars Piguet that cost more than Chloe's entire apartment, and he wore a smile that never ever reached his eyes. "Liam, Sophia." Chloe said, her voice flat. She instinctively pushed a stray strand of mousy brown hair behind her ear. "We were just coming from Le Bernardin," Liam boasted, gesturing vaguely. "Had to celebrate. You're looking at the new vice president of private wealth management." He puffed his chest slightly. "It's a big move. Big clients." "Congratulations, Liam," Chloe said, her gaze dropping back to her coffee. "And Sophia," Liam continued, pulling the other woman closer. "She just closed on her third investment property, triplex in Tribeca. The commission alone was—" He whistled a low, obnoxious sound. "We're thinking of heading to St. Bart's for a long weekend. You should, well, you know." He didn't need to finish the sentence. "You should take a vacation." "Oh, wait, you can't afford one." Sophia, who had been examining her flawless nails, finally looked up. "Chloe, it's so good to see you. Are you still working at that little art shop, the one with the dusty frames?" "It's the Sterling Gallery," Chloe corrected quietly. "And yes, I'm still there." "Oh, that's sweet," Sophia simpered, her voice dripping with condescension. "It's so important to have a hobby. Liam told me you were always so bohemian about things. He said your father was the same, wasn't he? All those books and well, you know, no business sense, no ambition, no money." Chloe's hands tightened around the paper cup. Her father had been a brilliant, passionate art historian who died with a library full of priceless knowledge and a bank account full of dust. It was the one part of her life she had shared fully with Liam, and he had twisted it into a weapon. "It was good seeing you, Liam," Chloe said, standing up. "Hey, wait!" Liam said, his tone shifting to one of performance. He was playing to Sophia, showing her how magnanimous he was. "Look, Chloe, I know the settlement wasn't huge. You didn't really want to fight for the apartment, and well, I need it for, entertaining. I didn't want the apartment, Liam. It wasn't my home. It was your stage." Liam laughed, a short barking sound. "Always so dramatic. That's what I love about Sophia. She's a pragmatist. She understands assets. Look, if you're ever short, really short, I mean, here. He reached into his wallet, pulled out a thick wad of bills, and peeled off 2 $100 bills. He pushed them across the table. For, a decent meal. The gesture was so outrageously insulting, so perfectly Liam, that Chloe felt a strange cold calm settle over her. The hurt was gone, replaced by something hard and clear. She looked at the 2 bills, then up at his smug face. "I don't need your money, Liam." "Oh, come on, Chloe, don't be proud. It's just a couple hundred. Think of it as charity. I'm doing well. I like to give back." Sophia giggled, a high tinkling sound that grated on Chloe's nerves. "He's very generous, Chloe. It's one of his best qualities." Chloe stared at him. She remembered a different Liam, a younger Liam who had been fascinated by her useless knowledge of 17th century Dutch art. A man who had once said her mind was the most exciting place he'd ever been. That man was long gone, buried under layers of ambition and cheap cologne. "Keep it," Chloe said, her voice quiet but ringing with finality. "Buy Sophia another pair of shoes. I hear Louboutins are having a sale." She walked past them, not waiting for a reply. She didn't grab her flimsy umbrella. She just pushed open the door and walked out into the downpour. She didn't look back as the rain plastered her hair to her face and soaked through her thin coat. Liam watched her go, a smirk playing on his lips. He turned back to Sophia and pocketed the cash. "See what I mean?" he said, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Stuck in the past. Always so emotional. She'll be working in that dusty shop for the rest of her life. Now let's get you home. I want to talk about the guest list for the wedding. I'm thinking maybe we can get an in to the Vanderbilt Legacy Ball. That is where the real money is." Sophia brightened. "The Vanderbilt Ball, Liam, that's impossible. It's hosted by Sebastian Thorne. No one even knows what he looks like." "Leave it to me," Liam said, his eyes gleaming. "The new VP at JP Morgan. Doors open, Soph. Doors open." He threw the paper coffee cup Chloe had left behind into the trash, not noticing the small embossed logo on her leather satchel she had clutched as she left. It wasn't a brand he recognized. It was just a simple, elegant ST. The Sterling Gallery was not a little art shop. It was, to the uninitiated, invisible. Tucked away on a quiet cobblestone street in the West Village, it had no flashing sign, no bold window displays. Its name was etched discreetly in gold leaf on a single-pane reinforced glass door. To the 99.9% of the world that walked by, it was nothing. To the 0.1%, the museum curators, the private foundation directors, and the old money families, it was the most important private gallery in the world. The Sterling Gallery didn't sell art. It acquired it. It authenticated it. It brokered history. Chloe Bennett was not an assistant. She was the gallery's senior partner and lead authenticator. The dusty frames, Sophia mocked, were in fact original 16th century hand-carved Florentine pieces. The dust was the patina of age, and the paintings within them were quietly exchanged for sums that would make Liam Foster's new salary look like a rounding error. When Chloe arrived at the gallery, soaked to the bone, her colleague Arthur was waiting. Arthur was a severe man in his late 60s, impeccably dressed in a Savile Row suit, who had been her father's oldest friend. "You're late, Chloe," he said, his voice gruff, but his eyes were kind. He handed her a thick monogrammed towel. "And you're wet." "I ran into Liam," Chloe said, drying her hair. Arthur's face soured. "That accountant. I trust you gave him my regards." "I gave him nothing," Chloe said, stripping off her wet coat. Underneath, she was wearing a simple, perfectly tailored black silk blouse and wool trousers, the uniform of the gallery. "He offered me $200 for a decent meal." Arthur actually snorted a rare break in his composure. "200? Good Lord! That wouldn't even cover the shipping insurance on the new Rembrandt sketch we're verifying. He's been made VP at JP Morgan. He and Sophia are thriving." "Thriving?" Arthur repeated the word, tasting like poison. "They're climbing a ladder, my dear. You are building the entire building. Do not confuse the two." He led her to the back office, which was less an office and more a high-tech laboratory combined with a research library. Bookshelves soared to the ceiling, filled with rare auction catalogs and art history texts. In the center of the room, under a sterile museum-grade light, sat a small dark painting. "The package from the Zurich vault arrived," Arthur said. Chloe's demeanor shifted instantly. The tired, rain-soaked woman from the cafe vanished. Her eyes sharpened. She put on a pair of white gloves and a magnifying loupe, her focus absolute. "It's the one," she whispered, leaning over the canvas. "Look at the craquelure. It's consistent with the 1640s ground. And the pigment. That particular shade of ochre. It's him. It's the lost Vermeer." "Are you certain?" "Look at the brushwork on the pearl," Chloe said, her finger hovering just above the canvas. "The way he uses light, not as a coating but as an ingredient in the paint itself. No one else did that. Not then, not now. This is the lute player at dawn. It's been missing since 1942, stolen from a private collection in Warsaw." "And our client?" Arthur asked. "Our client," Chloe said, a small, genuine smile finally touching her lips, "will be very, very pleased." She moved to her computer, logging into a heavily encrypted email server. She typed a short, concise message. "Subject re-item 402. Authentication complete. It is genuine. The provenance is confirmed via the Warsaw archives. Ready for transport. CB." She sent it to a single unlisted address, st@Thorn Dynamics Private. An automated reply came back instantly. "Message received. Await transport instructions." "He'll be happy," Arthur noted. "This piece completes the Dutch Masters collection for the new Thorn Bennett wing at the Rijksmuseum." "He just likes that we found something real," Chloe said, finally allowing herself to sit. "He hates the noise. He hates the fakes." "Speaking of noise," Arthur said, pivoting. He walked to a different desk, one made of 18th century mahogany, and picked up a single, impossibly thick vellum envelope. It was sealed with dark blue wax stamped with the crest of a phoenix. "This was delivered by courier an hour ago, for you, personally." Chloe took it. Her name was written on the front in exquisite, old-world calligraphy. Ms. Chloe Bennett. She broke the seal. Inside was a single, heavy card. "Mr. Sebastian Thorn requests the honor of your presence at the Vanderbilt Legacy Ball. On the occasion of his official engagement, Saturday the 18th of November, the New York Public Library, 9 o'clock. Chloe stared at the invitation. "Well," Arthur said with a knowing glint in his eye, "it seems our mysterious client is finally ready to go public." He's really doing this," Chloe breathed. "He hates parties." "He hates fools," Arthur corrected. "This is not a party. This is an announcement. And you, my dear, are the guest of honor." A different notification pinged on Chloe's phone. It was a group text from an old college friend, someone who still saw her as Poor Chloe. "OMG, did you guys hear Liam Foster's team at JP Morgan just scored a corporate table at the Vanderbilt Ball? Can you believe it? Liam and Sophia are going. I wonder who they'll be sitting with." Chloe looked at the text. Then she looked at the heavy vellum invitation in her hand. "Arthur," she said, her voice steel, "call Vera Wang's atelier. Tell them I need to move up my final fitting. And call Harry Winston. Tell them it's time to open the vault." To the world, Sebastian Thorn was less a man and more a ghost story told by the Wall Street Journal. He didn't exist on social media. There were no paparazzi photos of him on a yacht. The last known picture of him was a grainy 15-year-old snapshot from his graduation at Caltech showing a lanky, dark-haired young man in a cap and gown. Since then, he had built Thorn Dynamics, a juggernaut in AI logistics and private aerospace that had quietly and ruthlessly consumed its competition. He was a trillionaire, not a billionaire, but he lived with the invisible footprint of a monk. He owned islands, but no one knew which ones. He had homes in London, Tokyo, and New York, but he was never seen entering or leaving them. Forbes called him the Silicon Recluse. Vanity Fair called him the Phantom of Park Avenue. He was rumored to be brilliantly eccentric, or perhaps horribly scarred, or maybe just bored. The Vanderbilt Legacy Ball was his first ever public move. He had purchased the long-dormant Vanderbilt name and charter not for the history, but as the press release stated, to fund a new era of American innovation. The ball was the launch of a $10 billion endowment, and everyone who was anyone wanted in. For Liam Foster, the invitation wasn't just a ticket, it was a coronation. His VP title had given him access to a corporate table seated somewhere in the vast echoing expanse of the New York Public Library's Astor Hall. It was in reality a Tier 3 table far from the center dais, but Liam didn't know that. "It's all about proximity, Soph," he explained, adjusting his new Tom Ford tuxedo in the mirror of his sterile glass-walled apartment. The apartment Chloe had refused to fight for. "Thorne will be there. He has to be. And when he makes his speech, I'm going to be right there. He'll see the J.P. Morgan placard. It's about planting the seed. This is how you get to the next level. This is how we get our own jet, not just a timeshare." Sophia was applying a final layer of lip gloss, her dress a vibrant, almost violent shade of crimson. It was designed to be seen. "Do you think I'll get my picture in Vogue?" she asked, striking a pose. "Babe, tonight we are Vogue," Liam said, brimming with a self-confidence that was so potent it was almost toxic. His phone buzzed. It was the same college group chat. "A friend of a friend is catering the Vanderbilt ball. Guess who she saw on the staff list?" "Chloe Bennett?" Another message popped up. "OMG from the Sterling Gallery." That makes sense. They're probably lending some of the old art for atmosphere. Poor Chloe having to work a party she should be attending. Liam read the messages and let out a genuine booming laugh. "This is too perfect," he said, showing the phone to Sophia. "Oh, that's just sad," Sophia said, her fake pity even more pronounced than his. "Imagine polishing the silver while your ex-husband is, well, us. Do you think we should say hello to her? Just to be nice?" "Absolutely," Liam said, his eyes gleaming with a cruel sort of delight. "We're generous, remember, we'll find her. Maybe I'll slip her one of those hundreds I saved. She can, I don't know, buy some more comfortable shoes." He finished his glass of scotch, the triumphant narrative already writing itself in his head. He, the conquering hero, walking the halls of power while his mousy, impractical ex-wife served him canapés. It was perfect. Meanwhile, on the 72nd floor of a private, unmarked building overlooking Central Park, Chloe Bennett stood on a platform in a room walled entirely with mirrors. The apartment was not hers, it was Sebastian's. Or rather, it was one of his. The Vera Wang she had requested was not the Vera Wang, but a private in-house couturier who worked exclusively for the Thorne estate. "The hem is perfect, Ms. Bennett," the designer said, her voice a respectful whisper. The dress was not a dress. It was a work of art. It was a shade of deep midnight blue that seemed to drink the light in the room with a cascading train that moved like liquid smoke. The bodice was simple, elegant, and adorned with nothing, except for the necklace. Arthur, standing in the corner in his own tuxedo, cleared his throat. "The Winston delivery has arrived." A security guard built like a defensive lineman and wearing an earpiece stepped forward with a steel briefcase. He unlocked it and opened it. Inside, nestled on black velvet, was the star of the Adriatic. It was a 120-carat flawless blue diamond surrounded by a constellation of smaller white diamonds. It was a piece so famous it was thought to be a myth, a sister stone to the Hope Diamond. "Sebastian is insistent you wear this," Arthur said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. He said, and I quote, "It matches her eyes, and it will annoy the right people." Chloe laughed a real warm sound. He's not wrong. She lifted her hair as Arthur fastened the priceless heavy weight of history around her neck. The cold of the diamonds immediately warmed to her skin. She looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back was not the one from the Pret-a-Manger. This woman was not tired. She was not worn. She was, as Arthur had said, a building. and tonight they were just cutting the ribbon. "You look like your father's research," Arthur said, his eyes misting for just a second. "All that beauty, all that history, all that value just waiting to be seen by someone who knew what they were looking for." "I'm nervous, Arthur." "Good," he replied, handing her a small velvet clutch. "It means you're taking this seriously. He is too. This isn't just a party for him, it's a coming out. For you both." "And Liam?" She asked, the name tasting foreign. "Mr. Foster is a fly," Arthur said, straightening his own bow tie. "And tonight you are the windshield. Now the car is downstairs. Mr. Thorne is waiting at the library's private entrance." The New York Public Library had been transformed. The grand marble-lined Astor Hall, which usually echoed with the whispers of tourists and scholars, was now a glittering sea of black tie-clad titans. Chandeliers dripped with crystals, and the scent of thousands of white orchids hung heavy in the air. Liam and Sophia Foster made their entrance. They were by any normal standard a stunning couple. His tuxedo was sharp, her crimson dress was eye-catching, and they both exuded the desperate, hungry energy of the newly arrived. They navigated the room, their eyes scanning name tags, their hands outstretched for networking. Liam managed to get a brief dismissive handshake from the CEO of Goldman Sachs and a polite nod from a U.S. senator. He was feeling invincible. "This is it, Soph," he whispered, grabbing 2 glasses of champagne from a passing tray. "This is the air we were meant to breathe." "Look," Sophia hissed, nudging him. "Isn't that the editor-in-chief of Vogue?" "She's talking to someone. We'll circle back," Liam said, scanning the room. "Now where's the staff entrance? I want to see if we can spot Chloe. It'll be a good story for the table." They skirted the edge of the main floor past the velvet ropes that led to the kitchens and staging areas. A few waiters in starched white jackets rushed by. "Excuse me," Liam said, stopping one of them. "I'm looking for one of the event staff. A woman named Chloe Bennett. From the Sterling Gallery, she's supposed to be helping with the art." The waiter, a seasoned professional, gave Liam a blank look. "Sir, all art installations are handled by the Thorne Foundation's private curation team. There are no gallery staff on the floor. Now if you'll excuse me." He brushed past. Liam frowned. "That's odd. Maybe she's in the cloakroom. Or maybe she just lied about coming." "She probably got fired," Sophia suggested, sipping her champagne. "Or maybe she just is the cloakroom attendant. Let's go check." They headed toward the main entrance, but a sudden hush fell over the crowd. The orchestra, which had been playing Vivaldi, softened to a low, expectant hum. A man in a tuxedo stepped up to the microphone on the central dais. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Tonight we launch the Thorne Vanderbilt Endowment. But first, our host, who has so generously created this evening, would like to mark a personal milestone. It is my profound honor to introduce for the first time publicly Mr. Sebastian Thorne." Every phone in the room was raised. The media pit at the end of the hall exploded in a silent volley of flashes. Liam and Sophia craned their necks, stuck in the middle of the crowd, their mission to find Chloe instantly forgotten. "This is it." Liam breathed, his heart pounding. "This is the guy." The massive 30-foot oak doors to the library's private reading room swung open. A man stepped out. He was not scarred. He was not a goblin. He was tall, dark-haired, with an intensity in his eyes that was almost frightening. He was handsome in a severe, intelligent way, and he moved with the unnerving, silent grace of a predator. He wore a simple, perfect tuxedo, the only adornment a pin on his lapel, the same St. Phoenix crest from the invitation. This was Sebastian Thorne, the myth, the phantom. He paused at the top of the marble steps, his eyes scanning the crowd with a look of cool, analytical indifference. He did not smile. "And," the announcer continued, his voice booming with manufactured joy, "Mr. Thorne is not alone. He is joined tonight by the woman who has agreed to be his partner in life and in this new foundation. Please welcome his fiancée." Sebastian Thorne turned a small, genuine smile, finally breaking his severe expression. He extended his hand. And into the light, her hand in his, stepped Chloe Bennett. It was not a transformation. It was a revelation. Chloe was not the mousy, rain-soaked woman from the cafe. She was not the sweet girl with the hobby. The woman who descended the stairs, her hand firmly in Sebastian Thorne's, was regal. The midnight blue Balenciaga gown seemed spun from the night sky. The star of the Adriatic around her neck didn't just sparkle. It burned, casting flecks of blue light across the marble. Her hair, which Liam had always called boring, was swept up in a complex, elegant chignon that highlighted the clean, aristocratic lines of her neck and jaw. But it wasn't the dress or the diamonds. It was her face. The exhaustion was gone, replaced by a radiant, terrifying confidence. She looked at the crowd, at the hundreds of and hung at a party with billionaires and CEOs, and she was not intimidated. She looked quite simply like she belonged more than any of them. The crowd erupted in applause, but it was hesitant, confused. Who was she? The name Chloe Bennett meant nothing to them, but it meant everything to Liam Foster. He was frozen. The champagne glass didn't just slip, it shattered on the marble floor. The sound was lost in the swell of the orchestra, which had burst into a triumphant score. But for Liam, it was the only sound in the world. "Liam," Sophia said, her voice sharp and tinny. "Liam, what's wrong with you? You dropped your—" "Liam!" She followed his gaze. She saw the woman in the blue dress. She saw the diamonds. "Is that—" Sophia's perfectly glossed mouth hung open. "No, it can't be. That's not— Chloe?" Liam couldn't speak. His blood had turned to slush. His brain was a frantic slideshow of images: Chloe in her worn coat, Chloe stirring her cheap coffee, Chloe looking at him with those quiet, disappointed eyes. He'd offered her $200. He'd mocked her hobby. He'd called her bohemian. He'd told her she had no ambition. And she was standing there engaged to Sebastian Thorne, the man Liam had been scheming all night to simply see. The man who could buy and sell J.P. Morgan Chase with the interest from his checking account. The announcer's voice cut through his paralysis. "Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating Mr. Sebastian Thorne and Ms. Chloe Bennett." Sebastian raised Chloe's hand to his lips and kissed it, his eyes never leaving hers. It was a gesture of profound public intimacy. Then he turned to the microphone. His voice was deep, and it needed no amplification. It cut through the hall with quiet, absolute authority. "Thank you for coming," he said. "For years I have focused on my work. I have avoided this." He gestured to the party. "I find the pursuit of status to be inefficient. But I was recently reminded by my fiancé that value is not always found in the stock market. It is found in history, in beauty, and in people who have the brilliance to see what others overlook." His eyes scanned the crowd, and for one heart-stopping second Liam felt those eyes land directly on him. "My foundation," Sebastian continued, "will be dedicated to recovering and protecting the art and history that shapes us. And it will be run by the only person on earth I trust to do it. My partner and the new president of the Thorne Vanderbilt Endowment, Chloe Bennett." The applause was deafening this time. The confusion was gone, replaced by the frenetic energy of a new power player being anointed. Liam finally moved. He stumbled backward, bumping into a horrified senator's wife. I need some air. I'm feeling sick." "Liam," Sophia hissed, grabbing his arm. Her nails dug into his sleeve. Her face was no longer pretty. It was a mask of pale, furious envy. How did she do that? You told me she was a nobody. You told me she was nothing." I don't know," he stammered. The room was spinning. All his boasts, all his condescension, all his petty triumphs were circling him like vultures. He had boasted about his new love, and he had just watched his ex-wife become the most powerful woman in the room. He'd called her Charity, and she had just been handed a $10 billion foundation. The groomer had become the bride. The upgrade he had chosen Sophia suddenly looked cheap. Her crimson dress was loud. Her ambition was transparent. She was an asset. But Chloe, Chloe was the whole damn bank. The story Liam Foster had constructed for himself, the one he polished and repeated to Sophia until it gleamed like a fact, was a comforting lie. The union of Chloe Bennet and Sebastian Thorne was not a whirlwind romance. It was not a Cinderella story where a billionaire had stumbled upon a pretty girl in a dusty bookshop. It was a high-stakes off-market acquisition of one brilliant mind by another. And it had begun, as all great historical discoveries do, with a single overlooked footnote. The story, Liam thought he knew, was this: Chloe's father, Dr. Alistair Bennet, had been a middling art historian at Columbia who ruined himself. He'd become obsessed, claiming to have discovered a lost Caravaggio, the penitent Magdalene. But the art world, led by a viciously charismatic rival named Dr. Preston Hale, publicly and systematically tore him apart. Hale, a new-money curator capitalist who believed art was just another asset class, used the New York Times art section to methodically debunk Alistair's claims, pointing out inconsistencies in the canvas and pigment. The painting was declared a forgery, a competent but pathetic copy. Dr. Bennet was disgraced, his tenure revoked, his reputation shattered. He died 2 years later, leaving Chloe with nothing but a mountain of debt and a library full of failure. This was the story Liam married into. He had at first seen the Bennet name as a potential key to old money circles. When he realized the name was not a key, but a lock synonymous with academic disgrace and financial ruin, his affection curdled. He began to resent Chloe's quiet academic mind, seeing it not as brilliant, but as a liability, the same bohemian weakness that had destroyed her father. Chloe remembered with agonizing clarity the night he'd found her in their study poring over her father's journals. "Chloe, honey," he'd said, his voice slick with that ambitious charm he was so proud of, "why are you reading this sad sack stuff? It's like a manual on how to fail." He'd tapped the leather-bound book. "This is the past. It's debt. I'm talking about the future. I'm talking about assets. Now let's go look at penthouse listings online. I want to show you the kind of marble I want for the wet bar." He had dismissed her history, her passion, and her intellect as sad sack stuff. The day the divorce was finalized, Chloe didn't just mourn. She breathed. The oppressive weight of his pragmatic, soul-crushing ambition was gone. She was free. She moved into her tiny West Village apartment, took over the Sterling Gallery from Arthur, who had been safeguarding it for her, and she returned to the journals. This time she was not a grieving daughter. She was the most meticulous authenticator in the private market. For 3 months she worked cross-referencing her father's notes with auction catalogs and shipping manifests. Then at 3:00 a.m. on a Tuesday she found it. It wasn't a grand revelation. It was a single line in her father's frantic, late-stage handwriting next to a pasted-in snippet from a Port of Genoa shipping manifest, 1952. The manifest listed, "Item 7A, Magdalene, Florentine. C, 1610. Item 7B, Magdalene, School of C, 1650. Her father's note, which Liam would have called madman's scribbles, read Hale only X-rayed 7A. He presented 7A to the board. He never mentioned 7B. Why? Why did he ignore the other painting? Chloe's blood ran cold. Her father hadn't been wrong. He had been set up. Preston Hale hadn't just disagreed with him. He had framed him. Hale had presented the obvious fake 7A as Alistair's discovery, publicly discredited it, and ruined him. But he had ignored, and Chloe suspected acquired the other one. Chloe put all her resources into tracking Item 7B. It had been sold, passed through 2 private collectors, and then 6 years ago had been acquired by a shell corporation based in Geneva. A shell corporation she traced through 3 firewalls and a deep dive into Swiss financial records to a single holding company, Thorne Dynamics. The real painting, the one her father had been searching for, was owned by the phantom billionaire Sebastian Thorne. She didn't hesitate. She didn't leak the story. That was Liam's way, all noise and posturing. She acted. She wrote one single email to the encrypted private server she'd unearthed. Subject: The Penitent, Magdalene Genoa Manifest, 1952. Item 7B. You own the real one. I am the only person alive who can prove it. C. Bennett. The reply came in 90 seconds. My office. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. St. The office was the 72nd floor penthouse. The elevator was silent, windowless, and moved so fast it made her stomach drop. The apartment was not what she expected. It wasn't gold and marble like Liam's dream. It was concrete, glass, and books. A massive telescope was aimed at the park. Blueprints for a rocket engine were spread across a table. And on the wall, lit by a single perfect museum light, was a painting. Sebastian Thorne emerged from the shadows. He wasn't in a suit. He was barefoot in gray jeans and a black t-shirt. He didn't look at her. He stared at the painting. Preston Hale sold me that 10 years ago, Sebastian said, his voice a low rumble. He told me it was the infamous Bennett forgery, a curio, a monument to academic failure. I bought it because I liked her eyes. They looked disappointed. He finally turned to her. His eyes were not cold. They were electric, processing her with terrifying speed. You are Alistair Bennett's daughter. You're here to tell me I own $100 million fake. No, Mr. Thorne, Chloe said, her voice steady. You're right. It is a fake. My father was ruined by it. But this isn't the painting he was tracking. She walked past him, setting her briefcase down. This is item 7A. The one Preston Hale used to destroy my father. I'm here because you also own item 7B, the one he hid. That was the beginning. For the next 6 months, Sebastian Thorne, the man who trusted no one, gave Chloe Bennett his undivided, obsessive attention. He was captivated. He, a man who built AI to predict the future, was mesmerized by this woman who could so brilliantly decode the past. Their romance was not dinners at Le Bernardin. It was 3:00 EAM strategy sessions in his private high-tech vault. It was Chloe under a magnifying loupe showing him the X-ray fluorescence of a 17th-century pigment. Look, she'd said, pointing to a screen, the lead tin yellow ground. It's period perfect. Now look at the file on Hale. She hadn't just found him a painting. She had uncovered Preston Hale's entire forgery ring. Hale had been using his reputation to authenticate fakes, seed them in minor auctions, and then sell them to billionaires like Sebastian. The fake Caravaggio on his wall was just the first. Sebastian deployed his private logistics team. 2 weeks later, item 7B, the real penitent Magdalene, was uncrated in his vault. It was magnificent. It glowed. Sebastian stood before the two paintings, the dull, competent fake and the radiant, divine original. This, he said, pointing to the fake, is what the world values: noise, ambition, a good story. A man like your ex-husband would call this a prime asset. Then he pointed to the real one. And this is what I value: truth, substance, the genuine article. He turned to Chloe, her face illuminated by the light from the canvas. You, Chloe, you are the genuine article. One night after they had successfully and silently forced 3 museums to deaccession their Hale forgeries, they were in the lab. Chloe was exhausted, her hair held up by a pencil, drinking stale coffee. Sebastian was just watching her. I've built systems that can predict the flow of global capital, he said, his voice quiet. I can track an algorithm's thought process, but I couldn't have predicted you. I'm just an art historian, Sebastian. You are a perfect algorithm, he countered. You're the only person I've ever met who sees the code in the chaos. The rest of the world, it's just static. He paused. I am inefficiently but profoundly in love with you. The engagement wasn't a proposal. It was a merger, a partnership. He told her his plan. I am going public, he said. I am launching the endowment. I'm tired of the fakes. I'm tired of the Hales and the Liams, of the world, the men who climb ladders and call it success. You hate that world, she'd said, wary. I hate fools, he corrected. but I will not stand on that stage alone and be pawed at by them. I need someone by my side who is real, someone who knows the difference." He took her hand. "Don't just be my partner, Chloe. Be my president. Run this foundation with me. Let's stop finding history. Let's start funding it. Let's build something that lasts." The Vanderbilt Legacy Ball was not a party. It was the press conference for their new empire. It was their declaration of war on the fake world. And Liam Foster. He wasn't the target. He was just the first most satisfying bug to hit the windshield. The rest of the evening was not a party. It was a coronation. The initial confused applause had transformed into a concentrated high-stakes gravitational pull. Chloe and Sebastian were no longer just attendees. They were the new sun, and the entire solar system of New York power, finance, media, culture, politics was realigning its orbit in real time. Chloe was not just the billionaire's bride. That narrative had died within seconds of Sebastian's speech. She was the president. She was the woman who had brought the mythical Sebastian Thorne out of his fortress, the intellectual powerhouse he had trusted with a $10 billion endowment. They were encircled, but not by the vapid socialites or the hungry junior VPs. The real power in the room had formed a tight, respectful perimeter. The director of the Metropolitan Museum of Art was deep in conversation with Chloe, his eyes alight. "Ms. Bennett, your father's work on 17th century pigment. We thought it was just theory. If your new findings on the Hale collection are even half correct—" "They are 100% correct, Director," Chloe replied, her voice calm and clear, carrying easily in the hushed circle. "And the endowment's first act will be to fund a full forensic re-authentication of your entire Restoration-era wing. We believe you have 3 forgeries. My team will be in touch." The director looked for a moment like he might faint. Sebastian Thorne simply watched his fiancée, a look of profound, almost dangerous pride on his face. He said nothing, deferring all matters of culture and substance to her. He was the vault. She was the key. Across the hall, in the darkest alcove by their Tier 3 table, the firm of Foster and Hayes was being liquidated. Sophia's face, once a perfect mask of bored beauty, was pale and tight with a fury that went beyond mere jealousy. It was the cold, hard panic of a speculator who had just been margin called. "You're a fool, Liam," she hissed, her voice a venomous whisper. She had her Louboutin heel tapping a frantic, silent rhythm on the marble. A complete, utter, and total fool. "Soph, how could I know?" Liam protested. His voice was weak. His Tom Ford tuxedo felt like a cheap costume, and he was sweating. "She was just Chloe. She read those dusty books. She cried at sad movies. She was weak." "Weak." Sophia let out a sound that was half scoff, half gasp. "You, the financial expert, the VP of private wealth, couldn't tell the difference between a depreciating liability and a blue-chip stock. You lived with her. You had that—" She gestured with her champagne flute toward the glittering circle around Chloe. "And you threw her away, for me." The me was the final damning indictment. She was, in his own language, the flashy tech stock with a good PR team but no product. He had traded Amazon in 1997 for Pets.com in 1999. "You are a terrible investor, Liam," she continued, her voice dropping to a cold, flat line. "You didn't just miss an opportunity. You shorted the one stock that was about to take over the entire market. What does that say about your future? What does that say about my future? I attached myself to an analyst who can't even read the most obvious chart in the world." The implication was clear. Their relationship, built on the flimsy scaffolding of mutual ambition and asset acquisition, had just been condemned. Chloe saw him. She saw them huddling in the shadows, a perfect tableau of their own insignificance. She murmured something to Sebastian. "I'll be one moment." Sebastian's eyes followed her gaze. He recognized the look on her face, the same cool, analytical focus she'd had when she'd first identified the pigment inconsistencies in the fake Caravaggio. This was not a confrontation. This was a final clinical authentication. He nodded a silent go. The room seemed to part for her as she walked. The star of the Adriatic at her throat pulsed with cold blue fire, a beacon in the warm, orchid-filled hall. Liam saw her coming and looked like a man about to be physically ill. He stood up so quickly he knocked his half-full champagne glass over the liquid spreading across the white linen of their abandoned table. "Chloe," he stammered frantically, dabbing at the spill with a napkin. My God. Chloe, this is... Congratulations." She stopped a few feet away, her posture perfect, her expression unreadable. "Hello, Liam. Sophia." Her voice was cool and pleasant, as if greeting a distant, slightly disappointing acquaintance. "Are you enjoying the party? I hope the catering is to your liking." The catering jab, a direct echo of the group text that had mocked her, was so subtle and so perfectly aimed that Liam actually flinched. "Chloe, listen," he said, desperate, trying to summon the old slick charm that had defined him. It evaporated in her presence. I didn't realize what you were." "What I was doing," Chloe finished for him, her head tilting slightly. "My hobby, you mean?" She took a small step closer. Sophia was frozen, watching Chloe with a kind of horrified reptilian stillness. "Yes, my hobby has kept me busy." Chloe continued, her voice never rising, yet it cut through him like a diamond blade. "You'd be surprised, Liam. My useless knowledge of 17th century art. It turns out it's the key to dismantling Preston Hale's entire forgery ring. My obsession with my father's sad sack journals. She used his exact words and saw him recoil. They were the roadmap. The madman was, just as it turns out, right." I'm sorry," Liam whispered. It was pathetic, but it was all he had. He tried to meet her eyes to find the old Chloe he thought he knew. "Chloe, I'm so sorry. I miss you." Chloe almost laughed. It was a cold, alien sound of pure academic curiosity. "No, Liam, you don't. You're confusing missing someone with a catastrophic miscalculation. You don't miss me. You miss what you think I can do for you. You miss the value. You are exactly the same man you were in the pret-a-manger, the man who measures everyone's worth in dollars and cents." Sebastian Thorne appeared silently at her side, placing a hand on the small of her back. He was not there to protect her. He was there to co-sign the report. He looked at Liam not with anger, but with the dispassionate curiosity of a scientist studying a failed specimen. "Mr. Foster," Sebastian said, his voice a low rumble that made the air vibrate. "Chloe is the most genuine, brilliant mind I have ever encountered. You lived with her for 8 years and saw nothing but a hobby. That is a failure of vision that frankly staggers me." He leaned in just slightly. "You held the genuine article, and you traded it for a forgery." He didn't even glance at Sophia. "I would fire any of my executives on the spot for such a complete and catastrophic lack of judgment." Liam's face went white. This was not a personal insult. This was a professional execution. J.P. Morgan did billions in business with Thorne Dynamics. He was finished. "You boasted about your upgrade, Liam," Chloe said, her voice softening, but not with pity, with finality. "You just misjudged which one of us was holding the winning ticket. You wanted a pragmatic woman who understood assets." She finally looked at Sophia, a look that was neither kind nor cruel, but simply acknowledging. "Well, congratulations. You have him." Chloe turned, took Sebastian's arm, and walked away. They didn't look back as they went to go greet the mayor, leaving Liam and Sophia in the ruins of their shared worthless stock. The aftermath was swift and brutal. By Monday, Page 6 had the gossip gleefully recounting the story of the J.P. Morgan VP, who had offered his billionaire bride ex-wife $200 for a decent meal. But by Tuesday, the Wall Street Journal had the real story, The $10 billion Detective, How Chloe Bennet Avenged Her Father and Uncovered the Hale Forgery Ring. The article wasn't about a wedding. It was about the systematic, brilliant takedown of a criminal empire led by the new president of the Thorne Vanderbilt Endowment. On Wednesday, Liam Foster was called into his managing director's office. The meeting was short. The coffee was cold. His boss didn't yell. He just looked disappointed. "Your public profile, Liam. It's raised questions about your judgment, your discretion. Thorne Dynamics has concerns." He wasn't fired. That would be too dramatic. He was reassigned. His VP title, his clients, his future, all gone. He was moved to a back office in the Jersey City Compliance Division managing internal audits, a gray, bureaucratic purgatory. When he got home that night, Sophia was gone. There was no note. Her closets were empty. She had, like any good pragmatist, liquidated her position in a failing asset. Liam was left alone in the sterile, glass-walled apartment, the one he'd won in the divorce. His stage. Months passed. The silence in the apartment was deafening. One night he was drinking a glass of cheap scotch the Audemars Piguet long since sold. He turned on Bloomberg. There she was. Chloe. She was standing in the grand hall of the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. She was not in a ball gown, but a sharp, impossibly elegant dark blue suit. She was radiant, poised, and looked terrifyingly happy. The star of the Adriatic was gone, replaced by a simple, elegant pin of the St. Phoenix. She was at a podium. Behind her, unveiled for the world, was the penitent Magdalene. The chyron at the bottom of the screen read, "Chloe Bennet announces Dr. Alistair Bennett Wing for Provenance Research. Funded by 500 Balmeus, Thorne Vanderbilt Grant." She was smiling, speaking with effortless authority to a crowd of dignitaries. Sebastian was there, standing in the front row, watching her just as he had at the ball. He was not the center of attention. He was her audience. Liam Foster, the man who boasted about his new love, watched his ex-wife, the billionaire's bride, the president of the endowment, and the woman who had rewritten history. He finally understood. He hadn't just lost a wife. He hadn't just lost a fortune. He had lost the genuine article, and he was left completely and irrevocably with the fake. And so Liam Foster learned the hard way that true value isn't always in the suit you wear, the title you hold, or the upgrade on your arm. Sometimes the greatest treasure is the quiet, brilliant person you underestimated. Chloe didn't just get revenge, she got relevance. She proved that the dusty hobbies and the useless knowledge are often the very things that hold the most power. What did you think of Chloe's incredible twist? Have you ever seen someone so badly underestimated? Let me know your favorite part of the story in the comments below. If you love this story of drama, revenge, and ultimate triumph, please make sure to hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs a good story, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more tales you won't be able to stop listening to. We have new stories coming every week.